Hi everyone. So I'm just going to talk briefly about this component, which is the erosion sources, and particularly the quality attributes and sediment contributions. So I'm going to break it into two main parts. I'm going to do an overview. So first part A, is looking at erosion source quality. That's looking to understand the influence of different erosion processes, erosion sources on sediment-related water quality attributes, particularly visual clarity. And then part B, looking at sediment source fingerprinting, so using this tool to understand, applying some different catchments and understand interstorm sediment contributions in some catchment, and also understand sediment dynamics and source phasing in a small studies catchment. And these two components kind of get to some of the core concepts of STEC, particularly linking erosion processes to water quality, understanding how different types of erosion processes, different material impact on our in-stream visual clarity. So part A, looking at erosion source quality. We published this work recently in Science of the Total Environment. And that was looking at the influence of erosion sources on sediment-related water quality attributes, and three main aims. Number one was to evaluate variability in sediment-related water quality attributes across different erosion sources, reclassify the sources to the minimum number that can adequately represent the spatial variation of these attributes in the terrains or in the catchments. And three, assess the potential influence of different erosion sources, different material on the in-stream visual clarity. We sampled these sources mostly in the Manawatu and the Reti catchments, and that was primarily we targeted sources defined spatially according to erosion process and geological parent material. This is Manawatu, it's the Reti catchment down the south end, and so we went out, targeted different erosion processes, the channel bank, shallow landslide, gully erosion, and different types of parent material which influence the soil attributes, ranging from sort of alluvium to greywacke, sandstone, unconsolidated sand and siltstones. And so we've got a pretty good data set across these two catchments that span a range of different catchment environmental conditions. And then we went through to measuring different types of attributes on these sources. So we looked at measuring like coarse particle size attributes, different particle size distribution metrics to represent the particle size, a range of different organic matter attributes, so organic nitrogen and carbon, and also light beam attenuation coefficient, or beam C, which is inversely related to visual clarity. We can begin to look at some of these different attributes, like particularly beam C, across different parent material and erosion processes, and you start to see variation in the landscape based on these different erosion processes of how this attribute varies across the landscape and how it may influence things like visual clarity. And then, because we have multiple metrics and we have like 19 different sort of source classifications based on the parent material and erosion process, we want to simplify this into something that we can relate to the landscape and to what we have mapped variable or mapped erosion terrains. So we went through a reclassification approach to reduce these down from 19 to 5 distinct sources that sort of adequately represent these source quality attributes in the landscape. But still, there is obviously some overlap, it's quite messy, and a lot of spatial variation. So we end up with sort of 5 distinct sources. So we have a sort of bank alluvium component. We have 2 sort of mass movement classifications that reflect like your shallow landslides, and one based on a sort of H volcanic material, one based on sedimentary material. We have a superficial component, and we also have a gully, sort of unconsolidated sand siltstone. And then we want to sort of progress this and then look at how those 5 different types of sources actually or potentially can influence visual clarity in the stream. So how might different erosion sources influence in-stream visual clarity over a range of different sediment concentrations that we might find in the stream environment? here we have a plot of different sediment concentrations based on the source material and potential sort of visual clarity from the different types of erosion material. And we can start to see that at higher sediment concentrations, as we'd expect, there's a lower absolute visual clarity. So higher concentration is higher flows, and there's a small absolute visual clarity range between all the different erosion processes or erosion sources at higher concentrations. But when we start getting down to the lower sediment concentrations, at lower flows, often we're more interested in the visual clarity, we're more interested in swimminess and using the rivers and streams. There's higher absolute visual clarity across all the erosion processes, and a much larger absolute range of visual clarity between the top sources. Some sources, the same amount of mass in the stream will produce much lower visual clarity than other sources that have coarser material and result in a higher visual clarity. So, different erosion sources, may produce quite a large range of theoretical visual clarity values for the same mass in the stream, not accounting for in-stream variation or in-stream dynamics and population. And this may have implications for how we understand visual clarity and understand how we or environmental monitoring and reporting of these metrics. So understanding suspended fine sediment targets for visual clarity. When we measure visual clarity, it's going to be influenced by the preceding conditions and the type of material that is eroded in the catchment and is delivered to that point in the stream. Different materials are going to produce quite different visual clarity with the same concentration. It's also going to have an impact on how we expect visual clarity to change or to improve following mitigation. So depending on where we apply the mitigation. So different types of mitigation apply to different types of erosion terrains. But depending on that type of material, the same mitigation is going to have a different effect on how visual clarity may be improved in the stream because of the unique or the characteristic attributes of that source material and how it, when it's eroded and delivered to the stream. So that was that first part, and now I'm just going to talk briefly about source contributions from a tool called sediment fingerprinting. For those that aren't familiar with the technique, sediment fingerprinting is a tool where we are able to characterize different erosion sources, erosion processes in the landscape using traces or geochemical properties of these sources and determine their relative contributions to downstream sediment, whether it's suspended sediment or deposited sediment. We apply this tool in two different catchments. The Erosion catchment down south, where we applying this in order to quantify sediment source contributions during significant flow events. And then in the Hawanui catchment in the Upper Turomia, to understand sediment dynamics in a small catchment, and particularly with contrasting seasonal or monthly changes in sediment contribution or erosion processes transporting sediment. So the Erosion catchment, we sampled this across the catchment, again targeting erosion processes and different types of parent material. Different erosion processes we targeted, channel bank and gully and channel landslides. And we took samples throughout the catchment and we were able to discriminate these sources. And for downstream, we want to sample three different rainfall events. And these different rainfall events represent different conditions, different rainfall patterns across the catchment, different magnitudes of flood. And so that we are able to then start to tease out how different parts of the catchment are getting activated and generating or eroding sediment, how that's moving down the catchment across these different nested gauge sites. And so we're able to collect samples from these storm events throughout as we move down the catchment on the rising and the falling limb of the event, and then start to see how, again, the different erosion processes being activated, eroded, transported, and sort of different regions or areas of the catchment are firing throughout the event into the types of events. That work's still very much ongoing. Hopefully early next year we can actually start writing it up. So it's still work in progress. There's no actual results to display from that yet. Same goes for this one as well. So this is the Hawanui research catchment, which Andrew introduced earlier in regard to the earth flow monitoring. And the aim of this catchment was to better link the land-based erosion processes to the in-stream sediment load and quality. So it's located in the Turomia, has this big earth flow that has been monitored and measured. And then at the outflow of that catchment, we have hydrometric data, turbidity data, and weather information as well. We're using the sediment fingerprinting tool. So we go through the catchment and we identify different erosion processes, erosion sources, sample the material throughout the catchment. That range from channel banks, earth flow material, mudstone, cliffs, shallow landslides, superficial erosion. Here's the earth flow, here's our sample spots, and our outflow of this catchment. And then for the sediment samples at the outflow of the catchment, we want to sort of different types of sampling. So we did monthly time integrated sediment sampling, so we can get a seasonal pattern over time. We have bed sediment samples as well as spent sediment samples during some large events. And we basically want to be able to discriminate the different sources in this catchment geochemically using a range of different geochemical traces. Some discriminate better, some discriminate or don't discriminate well at all. And we'll be able to tease out, again, when different erosion processes are firing up and being delivered to the outflow of this small study catchment, particularly linking it to the earth flow movements and seeing how much of the earth flow that's been moved and how much is actually getting picked up and transported down through the small catchment. And how are we able to detect that at the outflow, and how does that compare to the movement of the earth flow? Again, this is still very much a work in progress, but yeah, at some point we'll look to write this up and get a seasonal pattern of erosion process activation and delivery to the catchment using the fingerprinting approach. Yeah, so this paper done, and these two to be completed soonish. Yeah.